Good evening, everyone, and I'd like to welcome you to the November 20th. Oh, I'm sorry, November 20th, Lord. I'm a whole month behind. All right, so if we could please get started with a roll call, please.
Aaron Slade.
Red Harbison.
Bob Bigger.
Jesse Elliott.
Lisa Christie, Chelsea Wendell.
And I'm your chair, Christine Crawford. All right. So if we could please, were there any changes or edits, minutes from the November 20th meeting? If not, please, I'd entertain a motion for the acceptance of the minutes, please.
Make a motion for approval.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, thank you. All right, tonight we have Ms. Baker, and she's gonna, any changes to the agenda?
I did want to point out that the rezoning and the plan development are public hearings, so that's not expressly noted on the agenda, but we did advertise them as such. So Dr. Crawford will open the public hearing during those agenda items.
All right, anything else we need to know?
That's it.
Okay. All right, thank you. So we will go to the next item on the agenda, which is annexation 24007. I'll go over the procedures for all of our applications, including the public hearing, in which case we'll ask Ms. Baker to, if there's anything she'd like to go over with the applicant with us, then we'll ask the applicant to come front to the forward. Please give your name and address. And then at that time, we'll have questions from the commissioners, if any. We will open it up to public comments and or public hearing. In that case, we ask members of the public to come forward. So please keep your comments or questions to around 2 minutes so that your neighbors can add something as well. We also ask that you share new insights so that we have as many viewpoints and different things to consider and not just repeat what your neighbor also may have said before you. And then we ask for any questions, and then we ask the applicant to return to the microphone, at which time they answer all questions at one time. Okay. All right, and then I'm gonna get you in 1 second. Okay. Okay. So what we will also do is if there's anyone in the audience who needs a microphone, please wave and know that we can bring it to you if you don't want to have to deal with the steps. We will make accommodations in that regard. And we ask again that you come to the microphone, say your name and address. All comments must be made from the microphone, so that those in Facebook land can hear as well. Okay. All right. So for this first application from Adams Brothers Properties LLC, are there any comments, Ms. Baker, or anything you'd like to share with us?
So this is an annexation in the Belvedere area. It's a relatively small parcel at the corner of St. James Street and Edgefield Road. It's close to Stan Johnson Jewelers, if you're familiar with that business.
If the applicant could please come forward at this time.
I'll make a motion. 07 St. James Townhomes. Recommendation to send it to City Council.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, thank you. All right. Next up is the first of three for the same property. So, Ms. Baker, do you want to do all three at once? And then.
I will introduce them and then we'll take it one by one.
Okay.
But as Dr. Crawford said, this is a 3-part application for a property known as the Kellogg Tract off of Belvedere Clearwater Road, and it backs up to Edgefield Road and also I-520. It's west of the proposed Alidade development. The first request is for an annexation of 380 acres that are currently in the county. The second request is for a rezoning of about 82 acres currently in the city limits zone CR. And the overall acreage for that project is 467 acres. The applicant is proposing a planned development. So in order for that to happen, we have to annex the property, rezone the current piece to PD, and approve a PD general development plan.
Are there any questions? And for the record, there were some amended items that were recommended.
Yes, that's correct. There are 2 items on your desk that were also emailed to you. Those are for the PD application specifically. One of them deals with garages, and the other item was for, it's here.
Garages and the.
It deals with the amount of commercial area required based on the number of units and square footage of those units for the residential development. So those 2 items are in our code requirements for PD, and the developer has some modifications they're asking to be incorporated into their PD ordinance to address waivers to those issues. So I'll call those out when we get to that application, and also on the PowerPoint I have them highlighted where everyone that's watching can see those changes as well.
Great, thank you. All right. Any other questions? All right, if the applicant could please come forward, give your name and address, and we'll deal with the annexation first.
Burton Fine, Cranston Engineering representing D.R. Horton, 815 Stanton Drive, North Augusta. So the property to be annexed is the large cross-shaded area that you're looking at in front of you. This is about 381 acres that's currently zoned RD in the city or Aiken County. Just below that red line to the south is 86 acres currently within city limits, so the property is divided between a city and county line. And we're requesting this to be annexed into the city and combined with the 86 acres within the city and then brought into the PD district.
All right, are there any questions at this time for Mr. Fine? About the annexation? Okay.
But if we vote yes to the annexation now, are we voting yes to the PD as well?
No.
At this one, we have time.
No.
I just want to make sure, because it's like a 3-part, so I want to make sure what we're voting for is just.
No, they're 3 separate items. So the first is just the annexation. I just asked Ms. Baker to go over all of them in her comments, so we didn't have to ping pong back to her for every application. Yes.
I was going to ask you though, so if we approve the annexation, it would be under the zoning that has been requested?
So you would be, so we're not approving anything. We're making a recommendation to City Council right, for the zoning as requested, which would be the plan development. So because the county currently has it zoned as RD, I think you
Believe so.
refer to, but they would like to bring it into the city of North Augusta as a planned development. Okay. Everybody, any other questions with regards to the annexation?
I think I just want to know more about the planned development before I vote yes for planned development. Like what their plans are for that property, because didn't we discuss like a preliminary plan from D.R. Horton earlier
We
this
did.
year in February that was
did.
R7 or R14, one or the other,
The
earlier this year?
project, yes, the project came in for sketch plan review in
Yes.
February. It was intended to be a planned development at that time.
At that
as
time,
well.
okay, I couldn't remember.
Just based on the size of the property and, you know, the intended mixed use, it would have to be in the planned development district.
Okay, thank you.
So what other questions did you have around the designation as planned development? Or was that the only? Because what we have to do is we have to do it in this order, and we have to do it in, yeah, so if there are specific questions with regards to the planned development, then please still ask them at this time. So if you need a few minutes, we could do that as well.
If it is possible to hold your vote until all three are introduced, I think it would make the most sense to handle them simultaneously.
Discuss them all and then vote on them one at a time.
That would give
well,
us all
that-
the information.
Only problem, we've got to do public hearings for all of them. So I can do them in order and do the public hearing part,
Okay.
and then we can vote on them at the end. But we've
Okay.
got to but it's got to be a little delineation because the last two will require a public hearing. So that has to be done a
Okay.
little differently than just public comments. So we can certainly vote all three together, but go ahead.
Okay, so the reason I was asking is because this is all I have. It's very small. I think it kind of showed where like maybe the houses were going to be laid out.
Is that this plan?
This one actually has like maybe what looks like some streets and lots.
Yeah, so we have done some master planning that
Okay.
is well beyond what is required for rezoning to the PD district.
Okay,
So there may be some exhibits you see as a master plan, but we do not want on a 500-acre property.
of course.
You don't want to be tied to a master plan in the process. Of
Yes,
rezoning.
and I guess my concern is like if we do vote yeah, or recommendation to council that they vote yes for this to go to PD is, it's kind of hard to know when we don't know what the actual plan is for the property
Yes.
yet. Do they have like an idea of like apartments, townhouses?
Yes.
I'm
development?
hoping this presentation on the following
Yeah.
items will
Fabulous.
cover that for you.
Thank you.
So that's in the last part for the PD where they specify the number of townhouses, number of homes, as well as, and that gets to also the commercial development piece, which is the addendum that we have as well.
I just
So
want
all
to
of
make
that.
sure
Yeah.
before, just trying to, we have
I
to
got
vote
you.
on each one. I just want to make
got
sure.
Well,
Educated, fully educated there.
my question may be slightly out of order as well, but I know with the second part, it is currently critical area, and I'm not 100% sure on exactly what critical area means. Or it seems like it would have been given that designation for a reason, and before we change it from that.
Okay, so let me back up for a second. Let's see if there are any public comments with regards to annexation, and then because we have to do public hearing, I need to get to the others in subsequent order. Is everybody all hearts and minds? Okay, all right. So are there any other questions just with regards to the annexation or general questions around why PD versus, I guess it's currently something else, RD with the county, so I don't know what that is. Okay. Is that correct, Ms. Baker, that it would be?
Yeah, it would just come in as R14.
All, but if the whole entire thing would be.
But because they're requesting PD to have more control over the development, it's coming before you, before it goes to council. But if they just requested R14, we would skip you and go to council.
All right. Okay. All right. So no other questions with regards simply to the annexation. Then, Mr. Fine, are you also going to represent the applicant on the rezoning as well?
That is correct.
Okay. So is there anything that you would like for us to know about the rezoning?
Yes, I didn't know if Coley was willing or wanting to present anything prior to our presentation, but I'm happy to run with it.
I don't have any specific comments on this. I'm sure Bert can answer your question that you had, Jesse. But yes, this property was originally zoned CR critical areas because there are wetlands on site. But Bert's team has done a wetlands delineation, and they have an idea of where the wetlands are on this property, and they don't fall within the confines of that CR zoning. It's in a watershed basin that's very protected. We also have the 50-foot buffer requirement for wetlands now in our code. So by rezoning this, you're getting more protection from having it in the PD than you would as just this CR zoning.
Thank you. All right, any other questions for Ms. Baker? All right, Mr. Fine, what would you like for us to know about?
Yes, so the intent of a CR zoning is to preserve the land the way it is and protect waterways and wetlands and sensitive areas. Of the 86 acres in the county, I believe only 7 of the 7 acres are in the wet or consist of wetlands or sensitive areas. When we jump to the general development plan, I'll touch on that now. The area shown in dark green in front of you are the delineated wetlands. Those are going to be jurisdictional by the Army Corps of Engineers. So in the general development plan, we allocate a specific land use to that area, which limits development substantially. We are not going to do anything in there aside from some necessary utilities, which we'll get in that later, but are the biggest challenge on this property is utilities. So some minor sewer infrastructure at strategic locations or a strategic location will impact the D area. We also want the community to be able to enjoy the wetland area and the ruralness of the site. So we've allowed for some minor impervious area for a walking trail or maybe a cabin overlooking a pond of some sort, whatever the developer desires within the limits of what is proposed in the ordinance. So we're pretty much taking that critical area zoning and putting it over 29 acres of property on this site.
From y'all's original proposal, I seem to recall like the topography on this was kind of rough anyway, so there's not a lot to do there. It's just, okay.
Yeah, we will be staying away from it considerably based on the current master plan. There will be a large pump station that serves this entire property just north of the wetlands. And we've prepared a master utility plan with this application. Very high level. It needs some more work once we get into design. But there is a gravity line that will cross the wetlands. We expect it to be aerial. So a sewer line sitting on concrete piers. And that will be the only utility work we expect in the wetlands. There may be some tight areas with sewer that get in the buffer, but that's below ground temporary clearing. Will grow back. But other than that, we expect no development. You see the primary access roads on that exhibit in front of you. Stay well away from it. We also plan for a large pond right at the mouth of those wetlands to catch all the stormwater from the site and treat it before it enters those sensitive areas. Treat it for quality to better protect those wetlands. So we're going to do everything we can. The city staff is very diligent about these items, and we're going to implement items such as these to protect that area.
All right. Any other questions? Yes.
Why is it necessary to go with the sewer through that area?
If you see, try to keep this simple. Well, everything drains to the wetlands on site. So to utilize any of the property where the solid blue line that leaves the traffic circle up into that, what you see as areas A, to utilize any property to the east of that in that rougher terrain, we would have to run a gravity line across those wetlands. Everything else would be able to get around it, but we would be required to put in 2 additional pump stations, where we're currently planning for 1. You know, when you're talking about pump stations like this, these would be city-owned and maintained, serving hundreds of homes and commercial uses. So we would prefer to keep that infrastructure to a minimum and operate within the means of federal regulations and city regulations as well, city and state. And we've provided a plan, a conceptual plan. We've done some survey work down in the wetlands, field shot, topography, to determine, that was a big concern of ours initially, to determine if that could be below grade or above grade. Above grade is actually, it doesn't seem like it, but it's actually more ideal in these types of areas. Much easier to maintain something that's out of the ground than in it, and not disturb soil and wildlife and what have you. So that's our current plan. I think it's a pretty solid one. We've done a lot of due diligence on this project before it came to you all tonight.
Any other questions at this time for the applicant with regards to this particular piece? Okay. All right. So then I'll open it up for the public hearing part. So for, what's the number? PD 224. Yeah. Rezoning of RZM 24-002. Opening up for public hearing. Are there any members of the public who would like to come forward at this time and have any comments or questions? All right. There being none, this closes the public hearing portion of RZM 24-002. Up next would be, we'll come back to vote on it. Any other conversation or questions at this time? You sure? Okay. All right, so then we're going to go to PD 24-001. All right, Ms. Baker, anything in additional that you'd like to add for the PD conversation?
Just briefly go over some of those changes that we discussed earlier. So you have a letter from Bert Fine as well as a modified PD ordinance. There's 2 changes included in that. The first addresses section of the development code dealing with plan development lot standards and buildable areas. There's a line in there that says a minimum of 10% and a maximum of 70% of the total project floor area shall be reserved for non-residential uses. Bert's team ran some numbers, and that would be close to 300,000 square foot of commercial space that would be required for the number of units that they're planning for this development. Staff has gone back and forth with this developer since about April when they first submitted their application. So it's taken us a long time to get it where we're comfortable with it. So there's a line in their PD ordinance where they're requesting that the PD ordinance could not be modified to allow less than the 27 acres shown on the plan reserved for commercial area. The second request is in regards to garage fronts. Also in the development code for PD districts, there's a line that says the garage area may not exceed 40% of the front facade of the structure. We went back and forth on townhouses, but when we started to look at the single-family detached dwellings, if they're in a situation where if there's a single-story house, that garage on a 28-foot wide unit, if there's a two-car garage, it may exceed that 40%. It's probably not as much of an issue with a two-story house, but they wanted to include that in the ordinance to address that issue. So those are the two changes that are in the ordinance and covered in that letter.
All right, any questions for Ms. Baker? All right, Mr. Fine, if you could come back up and please present on the PD.
Do I need to restate my name for the record?
Yes, please.
Burton Fine, Cranston Engineering, representing D.R. Horton, 815 Stanton Drive, North Augusta. So to touch on those revisions that Coley mentioned while we're on that topic, we received their staff report and they highlighted or noted many items in the ordinance, and these two stood out to us. And we're not asking to completely do away with the code. This development's a little larger than most in the area and require a little. When you have a larger property, it requires a little more flexibility. So we have included stipulations in the ordinance to limit the development so that we do not stray away from the code too significantly. So what we're proposing is on the garage fronts, the code requires that no more than 40% of the face of or the facade of the house can be a garage front. We're asking that 28-foot wide homes or larger may have 16-foot garages, and anything smaller than that would have an 8-foot garage if a garage were desired by the buyer. This is a little more lenient. We do not. I don't even. Their single-story 28-foot product is very close to that 40%. If anything, it may be 5% over that, but I believe it's very close. And we can go over some elevations later on in the presentation. But the other item was the commercial floor area ratio to residential floor area ratio. The code requires that a minimum of 10% of all floor area on the project be dedicated to a non-residential use. When we ran some numbers, assuming an average 2,500 square foot home at about 1,200 homes, we came up with 300,000 square feet of required commercial use. Well, the way the property lays out, we have 500 acres of property, only about 150 feet of frontage on Edgefield Highway, along with a pretty substantial amount of frontage on Belvedere Clearwater Road. But that property is very rough. We got wetlands to deal with. The required access location is straight across from another road. So we're limited there. And we have for a large commercial development, you want good visibility and easy access. And you just don't want to push it too far back into the property. It'll make it very difficult to market. And there's a lot of competition coming to this area from a commercial standpoint. So it's not that there will be a lack of that in this general area. So what we've done there, as opposed to holding it to a floor area ratio, we're just putting a stipulation in the ordinance that it will never be reduced below the acreage shown here. Because if we were to waive that requirement, we could come back with a modification and simply take away the commercial. So now we're just saying not less than 27 acres may be dedicated to commercial use. It can only grow if we would like to modify that. So as we mentioned earlier, the two primary challenges of this development is going to be terrain and utilities. The terrain on site is mostly severe. You have very mature pine hills with mature hardwood bottoms. There's several large draws that run through the property that all drain to the wetlands. We plan to leave these draws alone to the best extent practical, aside from some strategic pond locations and road crossings. We're not going to be building lots in these draws. We're going to try to leave them natural and put designated buffers over them. So these draws and the proposed road system also create the need to develop these hilltops. So the hilltops will be the primary areas of development, which creates separate neighborhoods throughout the community. Gives it a sense of scale. Going to be large buffers between these larger pods. The hilltop going up into the A area is probably the nicest portion of the property. That's where you're going to have your denser single-family detached areas. The primary access is going to be by way of Collector Road. You see it there. It's shown as a divided road. It runs from Belvedere Clearwater up to Edgefield Highway. Access will be limited along this road. It'll have a center cut median to allow for planned turn lanes and future turn lanes if needed. This divides area designation B from area designation A. The road going up into A is what we're calling a sub-collector. It'll be designed as that to the city code. This road will not have lots on it. It will be a boulevard road to provide access to the larger portion of the residential up there at the top of the hill. Purpose of this road is obviously to provide access and additional capacity for the residents that are going to be using it daily. It'll also be traversing some of that steeper terrain. And we will provide a 30-foot buffer off that road between any lot and a 40-foot buffer off the collector road from any lot. So the GDP shows 4 separate area designations. Designation A is your single-family residential. This is going to be all detached housing. We have broken the single-family land uses up into small, medium, and large lot to stay in line with the code or the intent of the North Augusta Development Code. This area will have small, medium, and large lot products, and it will be developed in pods. So these pods will probably, hold one pod may be a small lot residential, the other may be a medium, and the other may be a large, so on and so forth. So the purpose is to provide, a variety of price points and buyers for this community. Designation B is your mixed residential. This allows for all the uses in Designation A. All the uses in Designation A, as well as some attached housing, townhomes, and what we're calling cottages. The developer has a very small or a smaller single-family detached lot that can be on a 30-foot lot, more of a cluster-style development, if you will. So those uses are allowed. We're also allowing for 300 apartments maximum. There's no plan for apartments in the current master plan that we've been working on, but with the market, the change, the uncertainty of the market, there may be a time where apartments would be a good fit. If those were to be included in the development, we'd expect them to be in Pod B1 on the general development plan, closer to the commercial as a transition from the residential to the commercial. And that Pod B1 is closest to Belvedere, Clearwater, and the commercial in the pink hatched area. In addition to some apartments, we are also allowing for a very limited commercial use in that B pod. No more than 30,000 square feet of building coverage. So potentially fronting Belvedere Clearwater would be a good location for some of that. Maybe right off of the main road. Depends on the market and what comes to the developer as far as offers go. So designation C is your commercial area. This ultimately allows for all uses in the general commercial district of the North Augusta Development Code and those uses conditionally approved in that district. This is 27 acres of property. Cannot be reduced, as we mentioned earlier. To go back to some densities there in A and B, the average density across designation A is 3.6 units per acre, which allows for 993 lots max. And the average density in designation B is 6 units per acre, which allows for 810 units max. Together, I believe that's about 1,750 units max. I highly doubt that will happen unless apartments come or a larger townhome area, which is not currently planned. That market is saturated in this area, so we're currently accounting for about 60 townhomes and no apartments. So, but we want the opportunity for that to be available to the developer if things change in the future. Designation D, we touched on that in the rezoning discussion. Very minimal development in this area, maybe a walking trail, and some required sewer infrastructure. There will be several amenity sites in the residential. There is a large planned major amenity as you go down the hill to what's shown as a traffic circle. We expect it to be in that low area and accessed from the traffic circle. There may be an opportunity to put something on the other side of the collector road as well, something smaller. But we expect this amenity to be a clubhouse, pool, tennis courts, volleyball, etc. It's your major amenity. And as you move into the residential neighborhoods, each pod will have smaller amenities. These may be items like playground, picnic, dog park, something to add some character to the individual neighborhoods, depending on the buyer or the targeted buyer. Along both the collector road and the sub-collector, we are providing an 8-foot multi-use path. This will be asphalt, and the purpose of this is to eliminate the need for a bike lane on the road, but to still allow for that use in the shoulder. Another benefit of this is we are going to provide several connections to the 520 Greenway to promote its use. Those are shown on the right side of the property with small arrows in blue. As I mentioned earlier, the utilities are the biggest challenge. We've provided a plan. Engineering's reviewed it, and based on the information that we have and the information that they have, and this is it here, it is the best plan available to us right now. It'll take a lot of planning to get utilities solidified to this area, but we do know that they are available. This development operates close, or from a utility standpoint, it is tied closely to the Alidade development. The sewer will be pumped down Belvedere Clearwater up Old Sudlow to the same trunk that feeds Alidade. So as we move through both of these developments, we will have to coordinate effectively to confirm capacity in the trunk line. Water, there's an 8-inch water line available on Belvedere Clearwater and a 6-inch on Edgefield Road. We highly doubt this is going to be sufficient, so worst case scenario, we have to bring a new line under 520 from the 24-inch water main that runs through the Alidade property. It does cross Belvedere Clearwater Road, so it is accessible without any easements. But we have there's several options with Alidade, with the development of Alidade for this development. So we are comfortable with utilities. Any development of this size is going to generate a lot of traffic. We've prepared a traffic study that looks at this development as a whole, and we've also provided more detailed analysis that looks into some phasing. The major traffic improvements that we expect to occur are signalizing Edgefield, the entrance off Edgefield Road, as well as the entrance off Belvedere Clearwater Road. We've looked at some rough phasing, as I mentioned. This will have to be looked at in a little more detail as the development progresses. The DOT is not going to want a street light on the road until it's absolutely necessary. So, what we call phase 2 in the traffic study will likely be developed, and then we will prepare some additional counts and take a second look at what's needed for the light. Aside from the signals and the necessary capacity, additional turn lanes for the signals at those entries, no major mitigations really needed aside from adjusting some signal timing on those around the site. So from a phasing standpoint, phase 1 is most certainly going to be water and sewer, getting those items straightened out and to the site, followed by several pods in designation B. Phasing will ultimately be determined by utilities and the need for the signal at Belvedere Clearwater Road. We don't plan to install the whole collector road at once. We will make that connection to Edgefield Road as soon as the signal is needed with just a single connection. Installing that road all at once is just not feasible from a development standpoint. It's a long road with very limited access off of it, so you've got to build a lot of it just to get a few lots. So we plan to do that in sections. I know I threw a lot at y'all, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have or go into any more detail on the items I discussed.
Yeah, I had one question with the mixed residential, and the current density is at 6. You said with a max of 300 apartments. Where does that take that towards the 16? Is that
So you're saying the 16 units per acre?
the max, right? So is the 300 currently in there?
So say we subdivide out a a multifamily parcel.
Right.
The max density on that parcel would be 16 units per acre.
Okay.
But across the entire B area, we cannot exceed 6 average.
I got you. So the 16 it would be just for that one area.
Yeah,
with
so
it averaging out.
as you
Okay.
subdivide and develop, you cannot go above 16.
Okay.
But across the entire 135 acres of B, we cannot go above 6, the average.
Okay. Excuse me. Can we? Yeah. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. All right. Okay. All right. Any?
Question as far as, this is obviously a very large PD. Time frame developer, is this a 10-year plan? What's the thought right now?
So we're looking at 8 to 10 phases.
Okay.
The first phase always takes a while to get going. So from approval, you may see the first lot platted in 2.5 years, 2 years, if we move diligently. I'd expect phases to be built in 100 to 150 lots, 8 to 10 of them. So probably 10 years, 15 max.
So amenity-wise, obviously, this is a lot of rooftops in there, a large amount of area. As far as building the amenities, is that in a 3-year plan of the 10 years?
Most likely. We typically will incorporate some smaller amenities into the neighborhoods initially. And then once you get to the 200 to 300 lot number, then you'd start looking at the major 5 to 6 acre amenity to be used by the entire community. So yes, the 3 to 4 year mark, I would expect the major amenity to be going.
How did we land on the number 27 acres is what you've decided is appropriate for the minimum for the commercial space?
Do you mind going back to the general development plan? So if you look at that property or the line north of the C area, there it's kind of shaped like a sideways lightning bolt. It follows a ridge line that is a natural divider for development. Even if that C-pod or residential, there would be some kind of buffer there just due to the change in topography. So that is just kind of how it landed.
But there's nothing necessarily stopping you from having B1 or B2 or any of those other spaces be additional commercial. I'm just curious.
Yeah,
that's only 5% of the total acreage.
Yeah, so if you look east of Pod B, running Belvedere Clearwater, that terrain is very, very rough. You may get a small, commercial strip building, strip plaza or strip mall of some sort. You're not going to get anything sizable there, which is why we're allowing for some minimal commercial use in that B pod. But moving on that side of the road, it's just not feasible. We've already done some conceptual work in the commercial area. We're looking at a lot of retaining walls, a lot of dirt moving. So it just kind of is where it is. We don't want to push it too far into the mixed residential to where it's, not creating a sense of scale back there. We'd like to keep it up by the main road. C1.
I'm sorry, the southeast corner of C1, where that blue dot is closer to where the fire station exists. I believe that's
So
right
that's kind of a more remote area that we looked at. Thinking maybe
in any of your concepts, could you get anything right there?
Some office space, like a 60-foot deep building, maybe a upper level with a split level building, 2-story, to drop down to a parking lot on the low side, utilize that grade there. But yes, nothing substantial.
It looks. I didn't even think you could get that there.
Yeah,
Based
there's
on the size of
also-
that fire station, if it could even sneak
Yeah.
anything in right there.
Any additional access on that side of the property, aside from where the major collectors is, we're dealing with guardrail. Not ideal to start manipulating that.
Right.
So
That slopes pretty significantly right there too.
it is.
Straight
It is. And we're looking at, one drive that kind of feeds from Belvedere Clearwater up to the collector road.
That 27 is probably less than that. Looking at what's actually buildable
Yeah,
out on the C1.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at, a gas station, a daycare, some small box retail, general office space, and some service stores. It's not going to be a heavy commercial. It will be light. Some quick turnover restaurants. Nothing. You're not going to fit a Walmart over here, or small grocery.
Kind of lends me to my next question then. So why exactly should this be a planned development that's supposed to be a variety of mixes and uses? Why wouldn't you just pick something that is a residential mixed opportunity and build housing there?
Well, the developer has a large number of products, residential products. We're talking, 30-foot lots to 70-foot lots across the whole property, as well as attached housing, duplexes. And it's just, when you get to a property that's this size, it just needs to be, there needs to be a little more leniency in that. We would be required to subdivide the property and assign different zonings to the separate pods you see here to allow for that.
To kind of piggyback on her question, so could this property work as R14 or R7? I mean, I know you couldn't get maybe some of that parcel that's down there that's steep, and the topography is going to be an issue, and there's obviously attractiveness that the PD brings to like multi-use, but I also have some concerns about just the possibility of apartments in the future and commercial sitting unused, because like you said, there's not a lot of visibility and things like that. Like, could this parcel work at R14 or R7 for the developer? Maybe not all the way up to Belvedere Clearwater Road, but has that been, I mean, I'm sure it's been considered, but was there a specific reason why it was like tabled and gone PD?
Based on the last 5 years in this area, the market has been swinging significantly. 2 years ago, there was no problem selling homes. Now, townhomes are saturated. It's just the ever-changing nature of the market. So what we've tried to do with this plan is, and we have provided way more planning and due diligence than any other rezoning, that I would typically do. We've tried to provide a product that city staff is comfortable with, to avoid coming back to this room for rezonings on 7, 8 occasions in 10 years throughout the next 10 years. So we would like some flexibility, but we do not. I mean, we want to put stipulations on it. There's stipulations all over the ordinance that hold us to certain items.
So that the 300 max apartments, if that were to be an issue or a possibility, that's y'all are just saying that's what it'd be limited to, or is that what the PD?
That is what
has
the
limited?
ordinance states.
Okay.
Limited to 300. Yes.
And just for reference and for everyone watching, that's a typical apartment development, 300 units.
I think the concern is the intent of the PD. Are we following what we're sort of set to do? So,
Just with full candor, so from my perspective, PD is supposed to be a bunch of mixed use. And to your point, if you've got some challenges that you're facing here, but I don't understand what it would be preventing you from just creating a mixed residential district as opposed to a PD, besides the fact that it gives you more flexibility. That's the whole point. The PD gives you more flexibility because you're putting different types of things in the space. That's why you get the flexibility. And so it feels like we're zoning it in such a way to give you more flexibility, but then when it comes to the stipulations that you have to have for a PD, we're not following those because it's really intended to be more of a mixed residential area.
With the current county zoning, we would be able to do exactly what we're asking to do here. With conditional use approvals. We work frequently in the county in this zoning district. We would be able to do this exact development, aside from the commercial. I wouldn't highly discourage going an R7, R14 development just due to having to come back for rezoning and waivers and all those challenges that would hold up the development and could potentially shut it down. We've added a lot of items that city staff has recommended. We did not want to put in a divided road from Belvedere to Edgefield, but the applicant was willing to work with them there and put that in. As we've done on several PDs in the area. So the commercial component is not minimal. I just want to make that clear. It is, I've got a concept plan put together. Just the nature of this property with how little frontage you have relative to the 467 total acres. I'm not even sure how much acreage is on the west side or east side of 520, but that has no business being commercial. So taking that out of the equation, you get up to maybe 6-7% of the property commercial. We're close to that 10%. If the concern here is providing more commercial, I'll speak on behalf of the developer here. I believe they've got a party interested in developing the commercial already. I think those conversations are moving quicker than you'd expect. So that's going to be early on in the development, getting some commercial use to Belvedere Clearwater Road. What this also does is it provides rooftops in very close proximity to the 362 acres of commercial on Aladade. I'm involved in that project as well, and there's been a lack of interest in that commercial until these rooftops get there. So this helps that as well from a general area standpoint. But if this were not a PD, I feel like we would be asking for waivers on every single section of development that we come or put in front of planning for review.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right. At this point, we would like to open it up for a public hearing. Are there any members of the public who have any questions or comments with regards to PD 24-001 application? There being none, we will close the public hearing portion of this application. All right. So Are there any other conversations with regards to the PD and any questions for Ms. Baker with regards to staff's findings or recommendations based on this application? No? All right. So given that, then let's go in order. And we'll
These
open
all,
it.
these all are just recommendations to city council, correct?
Yes, so all of these are recommendations to city council. So we'll start with Annex 24-002, which is the request to annex 381 and 29 acres, 0.29 acres into the city of North Augusta. And it's requested to be zoned PD, but it's for the actual annexation, and then the plan development and the plan itself is in PD application 4-001. So with regards to the annexation, is there any further discussion? Okay. And do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to annex, or for annexation 24-002, to annex approximately 380 acres bound by Edgefield Road, I-520 and Belvedere Clearwater Road. A recommendation to city council.
Okay. And
Second.
okay. All right. Moved and seconded. Any further conversation, discussion? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Thank you. All right, so next is RZM 24-002, and that is a request to rezone the 86.22 acres from critical area to PD so that it can be included with the remaining acreage above. Any questions or comments?
I do actually have a logistical question for Cully. So I know in the report it says only 7 of the 86 acres are actually wetlands. Are they not able to delineate that section out and remove that parcel so that it could remain critical and the rest could be rezoned appropriately?
I think it could be, but I don't think that it makes that much of an impact because of the watershed basin that it's in. Bert didn't really touch on that, but it's a TMDL watershed, so it requires continuous monitoring during this project through the state. We also have a 50-foot buffer for all wetlands, so that would exist whether it's CR or whether it's PD or R14 or R7.
It's protected. either
It's
way.
protected. They cannot encroach in that 50-foot buffer.
Just as a point of clarification on that though, but they are encroaching on that for the utility aspect?
Right. There are certain encroachments that are allowed, but it can't be developed.
Okay, so when you say allowed, you just mean once we have something delineated as a wetland within a certain type of zone, then there are certain things that are allowed to be there by city code.
Right. Essentially utility work.
All right, so move in second. Okay,
Oh.
so it'll have a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to recommend RZM 24-002, Kellogg tract, for the zoning PD.
Need a second?
Second.
All right. All those in, any other comments or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay. All right, so last up for this property is PD 24-001. And we're going to vote us to a recommendation to consider the general development plan. All right. Any other conversation or discussion? Questions?
Are we able to have conditions on this or no with this vote?
For, for what type of condition are you having in mind so that maybe Ms. Baker can answer that question instead of a general?
Well, I just know there were some proposed things for the plat. I don't know if this is the time to talk about it or not. So, like they said, there was a road that was going to run a path that ran along the connector road, just to make sure that those were included. Because I don't know that I saw that on the plan.
We'll still approve a major site plan.
Well, it's got so much is going to be covered with the, and I don't know, do we need to call that out because that's covered with the city? I mean, that's covered with you all and working with you all as we go through this process.
Right. So you could make a recommendation, and your recommendation could say you wanted to include certain language. That may come out of city council as well.
Okay, so I guess what is the recommendation that you would like to include?
Well,
Not
just
that the roads
and-
aren't there, but what would you?
Because I think in the initial proposal, it was to have the trails that ran kind of parallel to the feeder road, and I don't know that I saw it. I think you said proposed.
It is in both
Okay.
the narrative and the ordinance.
Okay.
Okay, so there's nothing else that you'd like to add as a recommendation? Okay, are there any other recommendations that you all would like to add? And if so, please do so when you make the motion.
Well, I'll make a motion to recommend approval for the PD general development. This is PD 24-001.
Second?
All right, any other? All right. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
All right. Thank you. Got the 2 nays?
I did.
Okay, good. All
3?
right.
Okay.
3, okay. All right, so if you want to review for the record to make sure that we have it. So the ayes you have.
I have Jesse Elliott, Dr. Christine Crawford, and Bob Bigger. Nay, I have Aaron Slade. Oh, I'm sorry. So I have Aaron Slade, Bob Bigger, Dr. Crawford, Jesse Elliott. Nay, I have 3. Chelsea Waddell and Lisa Christie and Rhett Harbison.
All right, thank you. All right. Ms. Baker, are there anything in particular that you would like to call attention to for the staff report for November?
Nothing in particular, but I was talking to Ms. Slade when we were coming in, and it continues to be a busy year. I had 6 applications cross my desk this morning. It wasn't until we had our staff luncheon last week and all the directors come up and kind of say what their departments are working on that I realized just how many projects we have done across the city this year. And I really just wanted to take an opportunity to thank each of you on behalf of myself and also the planning department for the work that you do on the planning commission. Not all of the projects, but a lot of those projects cross your desk first. And, maybe 2-3 years before we see the build out. But I do appreciate the work that you all do here. So thank you.
And we would like to thank you for all of the work that you all do in the planning office and how well you help keep us prepared and to discuss and consider these matters. So we wish you all well. Wish everyone a lovely holiday season and may be filled with great love, joy, and time with your families, or just by yourself if you so desire. All right, and so with that, I thank all of you all, and we will see each other in January for our first meeting of the new year, and we will have all the same members for next year as well. All right. So I'll